Hi everyone, I am Alicia Fagerving. I am a developer at Wikimedia Sweden, and I work a lot with Wikidata and Wikimedia Commons and GLAM institutions. And today, 9 years after it was first launched, Wikidata has over 95 million items. That is a reason to celebrate, but this could not have been achieved without the contributions made by GLAMs all over the world. And of course, the volunteers working with GLAM data. Over the years, the Wikimedia projects have relied on their volunteer communities who tirelessly search for openly licensed data, media files, and other materials, and work with it, process it, and put it on Wikipedia and Wikidata and their sister projects. However, more and more cultural heritage institutions see the value of the Wikimedia platforms and their power to deliver free knowledge to readers all around the world. And so we have seen increased interest among GLAM staff themselves in taking the steps from using Wikipedia and Wikidata to actually start contributing to them actively without having to rely on the help of the volunteer community or local Wikimedia chapters such as us. And this is great. This is a very welcome development because it means that Wikidata has become a serious player in the linked open data landscape. And in my work at Wikimedia Sverige, I have met professionals at museums and libraries who have heard about Wikidata, they are curious about it, and they would love to implement it in their work. And sometimes, as those of you who have partnerships with GLAM institutions surely have experienced, GLAMs just dump their materials under an open license and leave it to the community to figure out what to do with it. So volunteers or a local chapter pick it up and clean it up and upload it to Wikidata. But then the GLAM itself is not really interested in how it's done, and they're only interested in seeing the results. But sometimes, and this is something that we have experienced more and more often, they want to actually learn how to do all the steps themselves, from understanding how Wikidata works to working with the data and aligning it with Wikidata, uploading it, and then analyzing it. And they also want to understand how a whole open knowledge ecosystem works, how the community members interact with each other, and how the Wikimedia projects are structured and linked together. For the last couple months, Wikimedia Sverige has been working together with two museums here in Sweden, the Nationalmuseum, which is a national art gallery museum, and the National Historical Museums. They are both very prominent institutions with large collections and a lot of power in the national cultural heritage world. And we are helping them to take those steps to become active Wikidata contributors. This particular project is called Usable Authorities for Data-Driven Cultural Heritage Research. And its goal is to investigate whether vocabularies as linked data stimulate new data-driven research on museum collections, and whether Wikidata is a suitable platform for linking different authority files and vocabularies. And there are two major steps towards achieving this goal and investigating these very big questions. First, upload the data about the people in the two museums' authority files to Wikidata. sometimes by creating new items where they don't exist, and sometimes by adding the museum's properties to existing items. And then we are visualizing that data to make it interesting, to show some exciting connections between the people and the objects in the collections in a way that really demonstrates the power of Wikidata. So how do you go about turning GLAM stuff into Wikidatas? First of all, we have a small project group, just a couple people, some of whom had previous experience working with Wikipedia and Wikimedia Commons and working together with us as a Wikimedia chapter. So they have seen the basics, they know how Wikipedia and Wikimedia Commons work, and they want to learn more. And we have been meeting in this project group every 2 or 3 weeks. And at first, we focused on basic training about Wikidata, how it works, how the data is structured. We looked at various items like people, institutions, artworks, how they are modeled, and also, obviously, the basics of Sparkle. And then we introduced our partners to OpenRefine. It is an extremely powerful tool, and at the same time, we found that it's possible for GLAM professionals who have experience working with catalogs and databases to understand it and learn to use it quite quickly. Because, well, it looks like a spreadsheet. It's easy to import and export data in different formats. There is documentation that is easy to read and comprehensive. The tool is actively maintained, so you can invest your time into learning it without fear that it will just stop working. We had a session earlier today that some of you might have seen about sustainable development of tools in the Wikimedia ecosystem. And this is really a problem when volunteer developed tools get abandoned, or if there are bugs that don't get resolved. And that really doesn't make us look very professional. But OpenRefine has been great. And most importantly, it covers all the steps of the process. You can explore the data, so you can import the museum's data files into it, and you can just create facets to answer questions like, how many female Swedish painters do we have in our catalog? And you can clean it up, you can reconcile it with Wikidata, and finally upload it to Wikidata. We have also found that GREL, the data processing language that is used in OpenRefine, is quite accessible to people who don't have previous experience in coding. So this has been a great experience. And the goal of all this training is that the GLAM staff in the project group are actually able to work independently and work with all this data and upload it to Wikidata on their own. And also later on, that they are able to share this knowledge with their colleagues at both their home institution, but also in other institutions in Sweden. Something that we discovered is that OpenRefine is a very useful tool for the museum's internal work. They discovered, for example, that they had a bunch of duplicate posts, and a lot of posts with missing information, and that they could identify and clean them up easily using OpenRefine. And that was a very exciting thing that I have actually heard. Hey, now that we actually have time to prepare all this data for Wikidata, this is a great opportunity to actually sit down and see what is in our databases and see what needs to be fixed. And since we work with 2 museums, we have 2 properties that we use to link the items of the people to the museum's databases. One of the properties, the National Historical Museum's agent ID, was actually created by a member of this project. It was also a great experience to see them feel confident and understand how things work in Wikidata, to actually understand how to request a new property. And this property has already been populated with over 7,000 items that we at Wikimedia Sweden didn't have to do this work. The GLAM staff they were able to do it on their own. Adding these IDs to Wikidata is one half of the work, and the other half is the museums ingesting the Wikidata IDs into their own systems, as you can see here. Now, how do we go from here? We have thousands of people items linked to the museum's catalogs, and a big part of our project is figuring out how to actually use it. How can we visualize it? How can we show interesting connections? And most importantly, how can we demonstrate the added value that all the data that already is in Wikidata provides to the GLAMs? In other words, what can we do now that we couldn't before? Visualizing the data provides amazing opportunities to do exactly that. And if you just use the Wikidata query service and write some Sparkle, you can already generate some basic visualizations, like a map of all the places where the artists in the museum's collections were born. But we are also playing with some more advanced stuff, using the help of Albin Larsson, who joined our team for this purpose, and who has created some prototypes that you can see live. They are filled with some very basic data to demonstrate how they work. And the first one is called Dynastic Marriage Politics. So it visualizes where the spouses of the kings of Sweden through history came from. And if you go to the website and look at it live, then you will be able to use the slider, for example, to look at a particular time period. And the second prototype, which you can also see in its first version live, it is a comparison tool where works by an artist from the 2 museums' collections are displayed next to each other. So we can actually see how the 2 museums' scopes overlap, where we can see works by this particular artist. What have we learned throughout this project? The participants have had to learn a lot of new skills. Sparkle, for example, that really involves some serious work to understand how it all fits together and how to get good results out of it. GREL, which is the language used for manipulating data in OpenRefine. That is also another big technical threshold for people who don't have previous experience programming, but doing just the basic operations on strings, such as removing parts of strings, splitting them, joining them together. This is all very doable. Of course, Wikidata structure, how things are modeled, how it all hangs together. A big thing that was brought up by the participants is that if you come from a background where you work with museum collection management systems, where everything is very clearly defined and where you know exactly what to put in each field, and then you go to Wikidata where everything is much more fluid and where you learn mostly by looking at items and seeing what people have done with them, that is quite an experience and quite a large difference. And of course, how the Wikidata community works. How do I create a property? How do I know what's notable? How can I delete an item? What do people talk about? Where they do that? That is a very big chunk of knowledge that a lot of us take for granted because we are so immersed in it. So it kind of feels hard to try to explain it to people from scratch. But I do think that the participants in our project group have had really fun with it and tried to understand how it all fits together. We discovered some very interesting resources. For example, every property on Wikidata has on its talk page this really helpful documentation with a list of maintenance queries that people thought this was really cool. You can find all items that don't have site links or have a lot of site links or have no other statements. So you don't have to write all these queries on your own. You can just browse and learn new things about the items with the property. Another thing that was really cool is showing integrality to them. This is a tool that can generate property coverage reports for all items that fulfill certain criteria. For example, I take all the items with the National Historical Museums of Sweden ID. I group them by occupation, and then I can see how many of them are missing sex or gender or date of birth or country of citizenship. This is a really great entry point to start actually improving that data immediately. Again, without having to write Sparkle on your own. So a big shout out to Shafed. Thank you. This is a great tool, and that's why I was bothering you for about fixing the bug on Fabricator. So this was a quick overview of this project. You are welcome to get in touch with us. The project manager at the Nationalmuseum is Kari Glasseman, who can surely talk about working with other GLAM institutions who would like to do similar work. Albin Larsson has done the visualization prototypes that I have shown to you. Thank you.